Alabama, Ohio State. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. That's our aim right here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Please like, comment down below what you think of this series, college football in general, and of course, subscribe to the voice of college football. Let's talk Alabama, Ohio State, and a game that will be played. Not a neutral site game, not a playoff game, although, of course, they could play before 2027 in Columbus. The date is September 18th, slated for 2027 at the Shoe, and then the return trip in Tuscaloosa on September 9th of 2028. Ohio State and Alabama have signed to play home and home. This is historic. This is huge. This is probably, from a history standpoint and also from the cachet of the programs currently, the best matchup in college football. Because follow me, it's a simple deduction to make. These are the two, by most measurements, when you combine both, again, the historic and the current day status. These are the top two programs in college football. Yes, Clemson is to a certain extent the gold standard and has played as well as anybody in the nation since 2015. But of course, new to the elite. If we're talking historic matchup. And then also two teams that currently, this could change by 2027, but currently, based on recruiting, based on winning percentage, based on what's going on in college football right now, are elite. This is the matchup. There can't be a better matchup. Again, things could change before 2027, but as right now, as it stands, entering the 2020 season, this is the out-of-conference matchup in college football, and one we all deserve. All right, let's look at the history between the two schools. Let's keep in mind that Ohio State is now second all-time in wins to Michigan, and breathing down the backs of the Wolverines very quickly, winning many more games than Michigan year to year to year to year, and that's been the case since the early 2000s. So Ohio State now number 2 all-time in wins. Alabama is number 3. So the count right now is Ohio State 924 and Alabama 916. And then in terms of winning percentage, that was always Michigan in the number 1 spot. Ohio State has tracked down the Wolverines as of the final game of 2019. Ohio State's winning percentage all time is number 1 at 729. Alabama number 4 at 726. It's that close. This is also the SEC versus the Big Ten, and again, the SEC is the best conference in college football by just about any measurement, but the Big Ten, when it comes to power in the sport, owning television households, owning rear ends in the seats, owning cachet, owning the sport, the Big Ten's the only conference that can challenge the SEC. This is obvious. This is not debatable. These are the two best conferences by the measurements off the field. Again, in terms of popularity, it's not even close. Let's look at the matchup between the two schools. Alabama led this thing 3-0 before the Buckeyes won that 2014 college football playoff game in the inaugural season. Go back to 1978, Sugar Bowl. It was the 77 season. It was Alabama vying for a national championship at 11-1. They finished number 2 in the country. A historic coaching matchup between Bear Bryant and Woody Hayes. Ohio State had a good team, not a great team. They were in the top 10 in the nation at number 9 at 9-2. They had lost by 2 scores to Michigan. So again, not a great Buckeyes team, not a vintage Ohio State team. Good team, quarterbacked by Rod Gerald. Number of professional players on the field in 1977 for the Buckeyes. But that Bama team, arguably the best in the country, they finished number 2 to Notre Dame's number 1 ranking in 77. Alabama led it 13-0 at half. It was not a game in the second half. Bama wins 35-6. Woody versus the Bear. The 1986 Kickoff Classic. You youngsters who have not experienced the Kickoff Classic, that was kind of like the Week 0 games, but it wasn't Oregon State versus Colorado State. These were the power brokers in the sport playing. The very first one was Penn State against Nebraska. Then the next year was Auburn, Miami, the two top teams from the previous season in 1983. So in 1986, in East Rutherford, New Jersey, neutral site game between Ohio State and Alabama. Excellent football game. Bama edged the Buckeyes 16-10 in that one. That Alabama team would eventually finish at 10-3, number 9 in the country, with the Sun Bowl win over Washington. Ohio State in 1986 got off to a stumbling start at 0-2, but then rallied for 9 consecutive wins before losing on a last-second field goal miss to Michigan, which cost the Buckeyes the Rose Bowl in the outright Big Ten championship. Ohio State won the Cotton Bowl to finish 10-3, and actually finished ranked ahead of Alabama despite the Week 1 loss, or kickoff classic loss to Alabama. Both teams finished at 10-3, top 10 in the country, but the Buckeyes at 6, Bama at 9. 1995 Citrus Bowl. So again, the culmination of the 94 season, New Year's Day. Ohio State came in at 9-3, having beaten Michigan, but bloodied by Penn State that year, finished second, a distant second in the Big Ten. Bama came in that close to playing for a national championship in 1994. And I was there for most of those games, and therefore Bama's 24-23 SEC championship game loss in Atlanta at the Georgia Dome against Florida, 24-23. Remember talking to Gene Stallings, Jay Barker, and the rest of them after the game, and Bama came that close to playing for the national championship, and that was, of course, Nebraska's year, and Penn State also went undefeated. Bama rallied to beat Ohio State 24-17. Really good ball game at the Citrus Bowl. Sherman Williams scored with about 50 seconds left on a screen pass, or a bit of a swing pass out of the backfield to beat Ohio State. Came down to the wire, 17-all. Sherman Williams from about 45 to 50 yards out. Great play, missed tackles, wins the game for Bama, 24-17. And then, as alluded to off the top, classic game in the inaugural college football playoff, as Urban Meyer faced Nick Saban, the two greatest coaches of our time here currently. And Ohio State with that great NFL talent in 2014. Zeke Elliott with the 85-yard march through the South defeated Alabama 42-35 as Ohio State marched on to the national championship. And as I stated at the time, when the two teams played, before they played and after they played, that was the national championship game. It wasn't Ohio State and Oregon. Those were the two best teams in the country, and they played in January of 2015, the 14 college football playoff at the Sugar Bowl. Ohio State again, 42-35. Great game. Nick Saban would be coaching in his 21st season at Alabama in this 2027 game. We'll see if he gets there. Of course, Ryan Day just completing his first year at Ohio State, and you would think that Ryan Day would most likely still be the Ohio State coach in 2027. It's only 6 seasons away, but we shall see. Again, top 2 of 3 in all-time wins, just trailing Michigan. The number 1, Ohio State, and number 4, Alabama teams in terms of winning percentage all-time, SEC, Big Ten. The last time Alabama has ventured to Big Ten country for a non-conference game came in 2010 and 11. They played a home-and-home with Penn State, beat the Nittany Lions comfortably in those games, 24-3 and 27-11 in Joe Paterno's final 2 seasons at State College. That's the last time Alabama's gone on the road, period. They've played all these neutral site games. They've played the Big Ten a number of times in these neutral site early season big matchups against Michigan and against Wisconsin. A couple victories for Alabama, as Nick Saban is 7-1 against the Big Ten at Alabama. We mentioned the loss against the Buckeyes in 2014 and a number of wins against mostly the better teams in the Big Ten for Nick Saban in going 7-1. The last time Alabama, again, traveled on the road to play anybody on the road outside of the conference was Penn State. We mentioned 2010, 2011. Ohio State since then has played Miami on the road, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma, and now Oregon this season on the road. But the last time the Buckeyes played an SEC team on the road was at LSU, Death Valley, 1987, and that was a tie game, 13-all, Buckeyes and LSU. LSU went to Columbus the next year, lost on a last-second Bobby Olive touchdown for the Buckeyes, and Ohio State won that one over LSU 36-33. So it's been a long time for the Buckeyes as they travel to the other conferences but have not stepped foot in the SEC since way back in 1987, but they will do so in 2028 as part of that home and home series. Ohio State, Alabama, Alabama, Ohio State. It gets no better than that if the two teams stay at the top of college football along with Clemson. But historically, it gets no better than this. Alabama, Ohio State. Let's talk it up right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We need to see more matchups like this. And this also reminds me that I need to unveil, as I have in the past, but many of you were not on board at the time, my scheduling formula, which would bring together more matchups like this equitably across the board in college football. Let's talk it up right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We will see you next time.